I am so excited to welcome to today's show my friend Alexys Feaster. In 2025, her first film, Hoops, Hopes, and Dreams, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival.
The story itself is the untold story of Dr. King playing basketball to build community. And then we tell some untold stories around President Obama that people don't know. And when you think about it, you know, the time that we're in now with education and textbooks and people erasing our history, this is actually history no one knew. So to be able to show that Dr. King did not go into Selma and say, everybody follow me in March. No, that's not how it works. He sent Ambassador Andrew Young and his crew and said, go build community. Go to the basketball court, meet people where they are. It's got a special recognition at the Hamptons Film Festival. We won Cleveland Film Festival. But the most exciting, unexpected thing was that Walt Disney, Anscape, which is the Black-led media company, part of Walt Disney, they bought the film. It's premiering January 19th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+. But everything about it has been the most beautiful experience.
Welcome to Deeply Well, a soft place to land on your journey. A podcast for those that are curious, creative, and ready to expand in higher consciousness and self-care. This is where we heal. This is where we transcend. Welcome back to the show, week after week. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful. This is Deeply Well. I am Devi Brown, and we are going to have such an amazing episode today. Today's guest is a woman whose life and work embody purpose, vision, and transformation. I am so excited to welcome to today's show my friend Alexys Feaster. She is a visionary leader who embodies the balance of strategy and soul. Alexys Feaster is a visionary strategist and the founder of the Kinship Advisors, where she helps athletes, cultural leaders, and organizations expand beyond their platforms, aligning values with leadership, legacy, and service. Before launching her company, she spent 6 years as an executive with the NBA. Her influence extends far beyond sports, from leading engagement strategies for President Obama's reelection. Alexys has shared the stage with Deepak Chopra, inspiring audiences around the world on the power of consciousness, wellness, and impact. In 2025, her first film, Hoops, Hopes, and Dreams, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and won the Cleveland International Film Festival Award for Best Doc Short. Through every chapter of her career, Alexys has shown what it means to lead with integrity, compassion, and intention. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I could not be more excited to be here with you and having this conversation.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I don't even know where to begin. We have known each other a very long time.
Yes, I know. I'm like, what decade was that, right?
Oh my God, it was the late aughts.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we have known each other a long time. I think through so many evolutions and iterations and pathways.
Absolutely.
It's so amazing. I mean, okay, so this is a lot, girl. This is a big life.
It's a big life. And to your point, so many, I feel like we met in music, and then from music, and then went on to politics, and then I've followed your journey for all the years. And I'll tell you, Debbie, like when people talk about like, where do you aspire to be when you see someone who's been in entertainment and able to make a transition where you're living in your full purpose and living such a full, beautiful life. You were literally the first person I think of. And so I wanted to share that. So being able to share space with you today means so much to me. So thank you.
That means so much to me, Alexys. That means so much to me. Thank you. It is, it's just like, it's been, I think, so incredibly cool to kind of both of us kind of be parallels, and just be able to kind of sometimes look across the nation, in different states or different places and just see how the work evolves in you, like see how God uses you and can really maximize your impact and your unique gifts and abilities in such a multitude of industries with such a multitude of people, and I think that's such a rare trait to have. It's a rare call to be called to, but it is a call. And I think, And I know everyone wants to do everything.
Yes.
And when, we see people that inspire us, it's like, well, why, can I do that? But some things are really unique. And I think sometimes being able to move through multiple worlds, it is a thing that only a handful of people are called to do in that way, because it not better or less than, it just takes different things and different a different purpose. Right. So it's been really amazing. And I had a chance with you. I went to the premiere of the movie in LA.
Yes.
And it's just amazing.
Thank you so much. I mean, what you just shared about moving through these different multitudes of industries, it's actually really interesting, right? People will ask me, well, how did you go from PR to music to politics to, what I'm doing now? And I try to share with people, it's really all the same. I mean, being in these industries, if you understand what your calling is. And I've known from a very, very early age, I grew up in Southeast DC, and I would go, to the grocery store with my dad or be out in the neighborhood with my family, and I would see all of these people begging, homeless people. And I, regular middle-class family. And I would say, the potential of this person, right? If they're begging for food or begging for whatever. And I always would say to my family, how do we bring them in? How do we just help save them? I know that there's something within them that, who knows where they came from, right? Who knows what that journey looks like? And I think for me, growing up in DC where everybody was Black, Chocolate City was a thing back then. I just saw the potential in everyone and everything. And so when people ask me about my career, I say, I'm just seeing the potential. Right? I'm literally just seeing the potential. When I worked in PR, I was seeing the potential that you can story tell about the talent. When I left and went to Interscope, I worked in A&R. I was seeing the potential and the fact that, these artists can be big names and music can transform the world with their voices or with the things that they're saying. And same thing with President Obama. You see the potential in people. And then, I feel like I have this secret sauce, this ability to influence those different dynamics. And so from a really early age, I was able to say, I know I can influence here. I don't know exactly how to do it, but if given the opportunity, if given the exposure, then I can move to these different worlds. And so I feel like that's always been a theme of the potential. And so, it all to me is so connected because of that.
That's so beautiful. And I think even when I think of Deepak's book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, something that really resonated with me too is this idea of endless possibility. Right. Really there's endless potential in every moment. And anything can be created or made manifest, in all different kinds of ways. But I think it's so important for people to hear. And I think, it's so funny because something that we've talked about more privately is just when you are kind of known for big things, one, how confusing it is for other people that you can be free and can, I feel like I could walk in any room. Right. Yeah. I know how God uses me. So if I'm needed in that room, I don't care if it's a room full of, anybody, musicians, financiers, the community, children, I know I can walk in that room and I have something to offer. I have something to give. Right. And I think it's only been in this very bizarre, weaponized purpose, kind of age that we've been in that we think we have to quantify with titles or we think we have to teach people how it makes sense that I went from doing this to doing this. And it's I get it because we want it to make sense for us too. Right. That was my plight. I was like, how does this make sense? Yeah. But in reality, it's what you've already been sharing. It's it comes down to knowing how God uses you, having self-trust and knowing you don't have to be defined by any one thing and it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. Absolutely. That it all eventually, all our worlds eventually kind of embody and merge and integrate in all the ways that they're supposed to, because we're gathering evidence, we're gathering, skills. And so when I see this moment, when I went with you to see the movie in LA a couple months ago, I was watching you and your partners, and one of the women from Sundance was announcing and calling you guys up, and you guys were speaking and sharing. And I remember watching you in that moment and just being it makes perfect sense. Oh, thank you. It just I so clearly, this movie literally to me clearly embodies your path and everything that you've amassed on the way. And so
Thank you.
Moments like this are so cool. You're being witnessed.
Right. No. Well, and to your point, as you were talking, one of the things that comes to mind for me is how God made it happen.
Yeah.
And he made it happen through so much trial. Like it all looks so good and, looks good on the gram or looks people are like, oh my gosh, now you have a movie. Well, do you know how many jobs I've been fired from or how many places I've had to remove myself from?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's because God knew the ending.
And how many saboteurs you face
girl,
on the path.
On the path. Oh, so many. And so as I look back, I'm like, thank you, God, because at the end of the day, there were so many jobs that I should have left where I knew I'd outgrown my purpose there, or I knew that I was being sabotaged, or you just know, your spirit, my body talks to me in a way where, I remember as a kid, my dad would take me to the doctor and say, I think maybe you're suffering from an ulcer, because I would have so much worry. So my body holds the feelings of discomfort in a way that I can recognize. Yeah. And so those types of situations have happened to me over the course of this really full, beautiful life. And when I think back, I'm like, this moment of being able to have my experience culminate into this film during a time when we need hope and we need to kind of reimagine the way that we're being educated. Because a lot of what we do with visibility and with my company in general is we tell stories that haven't been told. And so we're kind of combating against truth and lies. And at the same time, when I think about my own journey, like the truth is that I didn't listen all the time to what God told me to do. Girl, like half the time didn't do, like
you doing your big thing right now. Keep going.
No,
Keep going.
Like did not listen at all. And he kept telling me, he's like, that feeling in your stomach, you shouldn't be here. I remember the first time I started going to therapy, I was living in New York and I wanted to find a person that was convenient, just like anything, or, I'm sure just like you, I want to continue my rituals and the things that are focused on my self-care. And I said, in order for me to be consistent with the therapy that I know that I need, it needs to be close to my job because I work so much. So I worked on Fifth Avenue in New York City. And I said, if I find a church close to me, I can go during my lunch break, or find a therapist, go during my lunch break. I found a woman, her office was in a church. And I said,
wow.
Oh, well, I don't even have to look further, because if her office for therapy is inside of a church, that is absolute. She's going to take me as a client. And I remember I went in to meet with her for a consultation, and she says, I don't take everybody. I'm very busy. I need to meet with you a couple times to see if I'm even a good fit. And she says, well, why are you here? I said, I'm here because I know I should not be in the job that I'm in, and I'm not listening to God. I'm not listening. And so if I'm in a situation where I know I'm not supposed to be, then what about me is having me stay? And that's literally what I went to her for. I went to her to uncover what is going on in my own world where I wasn't strong enough to leave a place that didn't value me, where my boss didn't treat me well. Like, what was it about me? And so these journeys that I think, that we go on, and I connect that again, I feel like that was only God to lead me to her eventually. I'm no longer at that place, obviously, but I just remember not listening to his word all the time and wanting to get validation in other ways. But you always end up where you need to end up, So that journey is something I always tie back to. Is I didn't always listen, but ended up here anyway.
Wow. I mean, and it's such like that connection is like our younger versions. It's like it takes time to build that self-trust, right. But like, oh my gosh, like when we finally surrender and like, heard ya,
right,
got it,
yeah,
I'm gonna do it.
Yes.
It's like the ease,
oh yeah,
and the power and the grace that like floods in your life, and like these hard situations, and a lot of time, especially in our bracket. Like when we were younger, when we were young adults, the world was different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know every generation says that. Like, yes. I really get that from like my mom's generation now. I'm like, I know y'all were looking at us like, what reality is this?
Right.
But it was different. And there really was, we had to stomach a lot in a lot of rooms, and with kind of like a lot of manipulative and oppressive bosses sometimes, like saboteurs,
yes.
And so it's like when you are faith-based, when you love yourself, when you see people with eyes of love,
right.
It is so hard to understand that people are behaving the way that they are. Like it just doesn't make sense. And so that congruence, you don't always feel it.
Yeah, it's so true. It is so true. And I know that we, especially as women of color, we experience it every day. And I think part of it is what we're used to, right? So I'm used to feeling like, you know, I'm not seen. I'm used to having to advocate for myself. Now, I don't like how that makes me feel though. I'm at a stage now, you know, we were just talking about my birthday's coming up soon. And I'm like, I don't want to be the next year or the next years of my life still having to walk around and prove myself and explain why I have value or explain why you should see me. That feels very uncomfortable in my body. That's not the person I want to be. And so how do I ensure that I'm not in those spaces? Well, at the end of the day, we're in these spaces every day. I know so many women are in these spaces every day just by virtue of what we look like. We have these battles that we have to fight. And I don't want to live in that space in my body. And so finding out and finding ways to maneuver around that is difficult. But that's the journey I'm on right now, is how do I ensure that whatever rooms I'm in, you know, there's always saboteurs. That's literally what they do. And so how do I duck and move and like, you know, figure out how to combat them while also staying true to the fact that I'm in a space in my life where I don't want to have to keep striving.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to receive. And so how do I allow myself to receive what I know that I deserve and stop striving so hard? Because that's not the place I want to be in.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. And like we were talking off, you know, about that dynamic. And it's so funny because I think where we as women and women of like wisdom and worth, where we land, which takes quite a bit of practice eventually. But where we land is that like you bend the room to your will without moving, you know? And it's like we get to, and I think so many more of us, especially those with good hearts and good intentions, we have to lean into the fact that we naturally hold a powerful presence. But it's so easy because you know how uncomfortable that can make people sometimes. And so it's so easy to want to, I don't know, just like make it feel, be concerned about how your innate natural presence makes other people feel.
Yes.
But when you know you make good choices, when you know you are listening to your higher power, I think so many of us can take this permission and just say, can I just remind you, you're not a bad person.
Right. Yes.
like you can trust that you are showing up in light. And so take up your space, you know?
It's funny you say that because, you know, not too long ago, I was having a conversation with someone and they were like, you know, it was really interesting to just observe you in that space. So I can't remember the exact event we were at, but one of my business partners was there and he was like, I'm observing you and you're giving like kind of little sister energy. And I was like, I've never heard that before. And he's like, yeah, like you're so big. You're so, you know, you have such a presence. You have such a light. And he was like, and in this particular situation, he called it little sister energy. There's no other way to describe it. And so I, of course, processed that. I was, you know, talking to, you know, a few folks like my therapist and, you know, I have a faith-based coach too. And I'm like, little sister energy is sitting with me in a way that I need to unpack. Right. And so what is it about that room? What is it about me? Why am I giving little sister energy? And so as I'm, you know, thinking about it and uncovering it is exactly to your point, right? It's like, I guess not dumbing myself down, but how was I walking around like, oh, everybody, oh, build community, oh, do this thing to make everyone feel comfortable. And I'm like, ew, like, I don't like, that's not who I am. Right.
Oh my God, this is so good.
Girl. Yes. And so there was that. And then as I was going deeper, right, I'm like, oh, well, maybe some of that's coming up in addition to this idea of not wanting people to feel too disarmed by the light that I bring, right? I've been told this since I was a kid. My dad's like, you walk in a room and it's like, oh, you know? And so I appreciated that validation that he gave me because I felt it. Like I felt that I was different. And I know that I get that attention and I shouldn't have to shy away from it. I know, you know, like we should be able to live in our light. But the fact that I was behaving in that way, I said, I think it's something deeper too. And so I'm also going through this, you know, stage where, you know, you're kind of reevaluating relationships even with your family sometimes or with your friends. And so what I was realizing is that I have some wounds around some of my sisterhoods. And so I'm like, okay, so there's part of that too, right? Because I'm on this journey to constantly uncover the deeper root to the thing. And it wasn't just that I'm walking in a room and like saying hey to everybody in a way that made me feel like a little sister. It's because I'm feeling like a little sister that's not being nurtured. I am a little sister and I'm not feeling the big sister energy that I know that I need in my life. And so at the end of the day, I think there's some of that there too, which again is like, you know, the only thing I need to pull source from is God. It's not from another person, but there's still, you know, I'm human, right? So there's still something there around my little sister energy that is showing up maybe in my family dynamics that I need to uncover and heal. And so, you know, and I wondered, you know, sometimes am I going too deep? Like, am I connecting too many different things that may not be there? I kind of question myself sometimes in that. So
would you allow me to say something to this
please,
for a second?
Yeah.
So as someone that has seen you for like 20 years now, right? Like, I think people who don't maybe have a refined sense or just kind of understand light and the way it works, would say something like really flat that doesn't apply, like, oh, are there insecurities that you're carrying? Do you think that it's imposter syndrome or you're walking into the room and you know, feeling... I don't hear that as any of that. Like, kind of the way I experience it as someone that has seen you in a lot of rooms, there is like no insecurity that exists inside you.
Thank you.
I've never experienced you as like a woman or a friend as someone that is insecure. We all have our stuff, right?
Yeah.
But like, I've never seen you make any choices because there was this feeling of not enough or deficiency or trying to like please to be liked, right? But what I will say is like, it's probably that sensitivity that you talk about when you were feeling those knots in your stomach and noticing as highly sensitive people, which is a very real thing. And for so many of us as women, and likely if you listen to this show, come on, you are more than likely highly sensitive, me too. But it's feeling that you know how bright you are, and that casts shadow on people that are not secure in themselves for a variety of reasons, right? Yeah. That are kind of struggling or wanting or needing to feel seen in different ways. You know from historical evidence what that kind of nature shines towards you. And so sometimes you go in saying, not you personally, I'm saying, you know, those of us that have that contrast, sometimes you go in and it's really you leading with compassion. So even like, I appreciate that example he gave you because that makes sense. But like that leading, that little sister energy, like it feels more like I'm walking in knowing that I can trigger some people's insecurities, whether I mean to or not, whether I ever know what they are or not. And to protect against having to take on the load of someone else, I like to neutralize the space first. And now it's like there's different ways to work with that energy. But yeah, it's so interesting, the layers.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so to that point, there's an actual situation in Martha's Vineyard where I went into an event, and what you're describing, I remember consciously doing that. I said, if I walk in this room as myself, like there's going to be backlash. I don't know what it was. I was like, people are not going to they're not going to like it. Right. I just could sense like, it was kind of like a work environment. It's new colleagues. I said, I need to come in and, you know, still be myself, but like go towards those that are not the underdogs, but the more, you know, not awkward, but just, you know, the folks that don't have as much of the they might
be on the fringes of the room.
Yeah. So no shade at all. But I knew, I said, I need to go be with those people. And so something in me was like, I'm going to go with and make sure to neutralize. So that word that you use it just touched me so deeply just now, because that is what I do. And I remember in the vineyard doing that. I was like, I need to neutralize this energy, because if I don't, then who knows if I'm going to get the outcomes that I need for the rest of this project or for whatever's next. I had to consciously neutralize the room. And so you using that language for me is very, very helpful, because I wasn't thinking of it in that way at the time. I was just like, let me go find the person who I know, you know, but it is something that I do. And funny enough, even when my partner mentioned the little sister energy, the reason why it sat with me so much is, to your point, I was like, I don't feel like I'm dimming I don't feel like that's me.
Because you're not, I've never seen you trying to prove.
Right, exactly.
Like you're not, you get a lot of like great things that, you know, move in your life. Yeah. So you're not trying to win people over. Right. But I think it's so cool that we're actually having this talk out loud. I hope this is really useful for people listening, because I think this dynamic we're speaking to, it is such a nuanced experience, but women with light. And I know so many women listening to the show, and men, thank you so much. But carry a light that they've been trying to understand for their whole lives. And when you have light and you're led by that in your leadership roles, you're not led by ego.
Right.
It is very confusing how to take up space because you don't need to be aggrandizing.
Right.
You don't need to walk in the room and tell it, this is who I am and this is what I do and this is why you should be thinking I'm powerful and want to earn my attention. And then there's other people that's like, I already feel really good about who I am and what I'm doing. And somehow that's provoking to some people in a different way. So finding that balance, I think so many of us work with that energy for so much of our lives. And then the more work we do on ourselves, like you've been describing in your process, it's like, then we get to land and understand like, oh yeah, because those are the people in the room who have a nature to try to diminish others when they feel that feeling. And then you learn, oh, they're actually the first to fold.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I stop participating with this and thinking I need to even neutralize them, they fold.
Yeah.
They don't know what else to do, but it's like, I love that. I love that.
It's so true. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, because we're not, I think there is a percentage of women right now that are really navigating this because they're called to new levels of leadership and new levels of community. And you have to be truly so pristine and aligned when you are called to lead, and you're a community builder.
Right.
So
I am.
It makes sense.
It does. And what you're describing is literally, to your point of whoever's listening, watching, I'm actively navigating this literally as we speak. We've talked about it. Today I'm navigating it. And so it's one of these situations where I used to feel the light that we're describing. For decades, like I would come into a room and I felt that I had this inner beacon, like this light. And then there was, some things that happened the past couple of years where I felt a little bit disconnected. And so one of the practices that I've been doing lately, and even in my affirmations and my journaling, and I've been doing these guided like hypnosis meditations, and I've been saying like, where's my light? And so, and as I'm working with people, they're like, well, your light is there. And I'm like, I used to be able to feel like I could see it coming out of my body. I used to be able to walk around and I was like the light coming down from the top of my head. I used to walk in the light. It was so strong. And so there's something has happened in the past couple of years where I'm like, why don't I feel it? I'm about to be 44. I felt the light for, 2 decades, right? Or more, where I can identify that I had the thing. And so it's causing me a little bit of turmoil. I'm like, why don't I feel it the same way? Now, luckily I have people, not that I need the validation, but it is nice at times when you're wondering where something has gone. They're like, no, it's there. And so even unpacking that, I'm like, is it that I've had grief with loss the past couple of years and I just am feeling disconnected? Is it? So I'm like, why don't I feel it in the same way? But I know that it is me. Like I know again that the source, that God has put the light in me and that it can't be dimmed, it can't be taken away, but it has been an interesting navigation that you're describing because I used to be able to see it in myself. And I know it's there, but I used to radiate, the warmth I could feel around my own body in a way that I haven't felt. It's coming back, I will say. It's coming back. But last year was tough and I would wake up and be like, where'd the light go? And so it is, I think, an active navigation that's happening for many of us.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And even just, what is sometimes grief requires our light, like sometimes it's like, I think also something I'm learning that I think could just bring us all a little peace in knowing that like, it all fluctuates, but it doesn't have to mean anything's wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, like sometimes you got to turn the lights off,
right. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
power is running.
Yeah. Or in some seasons, it's actually protection because if you're super bright, it might not be the season for that spiritually in the air, But I so resonate with that, like really, really deeply. And I think that's interesting, like for everybody listening right now, spend some time on thinking that, on just like, where do you feel your light? How do you feel it? And then what are you being told about right now?
Right.
I think we're all getting like new, deeper understandings and messages from the divine right now on like how to serve.
Right.
Ultimately,
Absolutely.
how to serve.
Yeah. It definitely is. I know we talked about being a community builder. I've been a community girl my whole life. Like literally like the brand on my back is like community girl. And so even at different phases of my career, I've run foundations for professional athletes and done these different things. And then I woke up at a certain point and was like, I'm community girl, but I might not be foundation girl, right? Like maybe I'm taking this too far, right? And so that brand of who I am and what I've loved to do, and every job I've done has been about building community. I have pride in that. That is part of my purpose. I'm very clear that my purpose is to do that. But as I've navigated, these different phases, to your point about light and all of that, it's, I'm at this phase now where I'm like, how do I want to build community different? Because sometimes I'm building community because I see that there's a need. Is that my role? Is that my job though? And so, when I was dealing with grief, my beautiful niece Saviella passed away of cancer. It'll be, 2 years in April. It is the most devastating thing that you could ever imagine. And she's just such a light. She used to pray for other kids that had cancer. She used to chant with my mom and just be just the most spiritual little girl. And we know that, the way that we were able to cope with that is, God did us a favor by letting us have her even for the little bit of time we were supposed to have her. Like she wasn't meant to be here. She was just beyond her years and he wanted her back. And so, we have to just deal with that. But, I share that to say that during that horrible phase of and it's a phase that'll never go away. But during that grief, I was having a really hard time praying. And of course it's like, you try to be okay with it because you have no choice. We literally as a family watched her take her last breath, which is horrible.
Oh my gosh.
But, so we're like, okay, so you gave us to her for what she was meant to be here for, which was to bring love. And she was such a loving girl. And then the other piece of it is like, I know that God doesn't make mistakes. So if I trust God, I know he doesn't make mistakes. So if he's not making a mistake, then I have to be okay with it. And so as I went through and tried to pray more and just, I couldn't, like, and I guess it's normal. Like the more I read about it, it's normal to be mad at God. And I know you talk about that in your book too. And so I was upset, but I was trying not to be. I was trying to be like, God, I know you don't make mistakes. And yes, we're grieving. And this is horrible, even more horrible for her mom and her dad and her sister and my mom who helped raise her. But I'm like, I need to build community to get me closer to God. So I started a group chat with women in sports and entertainment, and just I chose women who I was really close with, like Swin Cash, who I know is a faithful servant. And then I also went, and I don't know if I should have done this, I'll say that, but what I also did was I looked within my network of people who have been kind of talking a bit about wanting to get closer to God. And I was like, well, I'm doing this for me, but maybe I can be of service in my community. So in addition to me going to the women who I know are faithful and can pray for me and help me get over this hump, maybe I can also do what I do with my jobs, right? It's build community. And so women who I know were struggling with their own faith, I invited them because maybe they can be closer to God by being part of this community. And so it ended up being 40 women in this chat. And so I'm really proud. And these women all connected all the time. But even when I think about who I want to be in the future, is that my responsibility? Like, I don't know the answer, right? Is it my responsibility to then bring along others when I know it's my purpose to do that? And I know I'm rambling a little bit, but it's something that I'm thinking about, right? It's like, should have just been my core group of people. Like, what is it about me that wants to constantly bring others along? And again, I know it's my purpose, but at what detriment to me? I just,
thank you for like letting all of us into your process, because I think it's incredibly important that you're saying this out loud. Yeah. And I think this is really a theme right now for a certain percentage of people. Yeah. And I think as women, like that's such a great evaluation of ways to kind of take a step back and do this often and just evaluate, like, this is who I am right now. Is this like where I want to be? Is this who I still feel like I should be? And what is like the greater cost of that? Because as women, we're trained to be martyrs. Yep. We're trained to be the ones that pull everybody in. Yep. And some of that obviously is so beautiful, but sometimes at what cost, right? And like, where are there blind spots possible in that, right? Yeah, exactly. Especially in the mixing of communities. Like, I think that's something we're navigating in community right now, is like, I didn't realize people had different definitions for integrity.
Right. I was just one.
And like, and maybe all all experiences aren't always one size fits all. Like everybody can come into that room. There are some rooms that should be general admission no matter where you are on your journey. But there are some rooms where some people are still in their fundamental learning, and it can be sometimes dangerous or chaotic or just not serving to like mix with people who are needing something else on their journey at that time.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and I don't know the answer because I think so much of my identity is known for that. And I'm getting the recognition, right? Like I get messages all the time from these women, like, thank you, because now I'm super close with this person, or this person, the introduction of this community has allowed me this opportunity. And that's really what I want, right?
Yeah.
But then is it still a safe space for me? Like, and is that selfish, right? It was built because I was grieving my niece and I wanted a space where I can have accountability. I'm leading Bible studies, once a month on these Zooms. And I'm like, am I qualified? Like at the end of each one, I ask if anyone wants to pray. And I'm like, I'm not even good at this, right? And then I do it and they're like, you're great. And I'm like, but, so there's these different things. And so the intention was community. But I make this very public. It was selfishly because I needed something to bring me closer to God, because I was feeling so naked. I was feeling so naked, not having the light mixed with God, mixed with the ability to be able to think something and have it manifest into reality the way that I was able to do it in the past. And I was just feeling naked. And so, in building that, I think part of it is the cloak of community too. I'm like, oh, if I have these other people, then that means that this is a whole group of people praying for me. And again, I don't know if that's still accurate, right? Like, I don't know. I honestly, I don't have the answer, but it's something I'm thinking about.
I love this.
Yeah.
The answers will arise when
Yes.
they're meant to.
Right.
And I can't wait to see, like, this time next year, I can't wait to, like, hear about all the things.
Yes.
Kind of speaking to that, like, I want to lean in here a little bit more, and I really want to talk about the movie.
Yeah.
Holding so many spaces with such a variety of creatives' minds, of people, of, even movements.
Yeah.
What does it really take for you at this point to stay centered while living a full purpose-driven life? I know you have this amazing group that you've built, but how else maybe are you privately tending to your own spirit?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We talked a bit about like my home is my sanctuary, right? I know your home is your sanctuary. And, I remember making that move and thinking, if I don't get out of the situation that I'm in, and it wasn't like it was, I lived in a condo in Maryland. I loved it. It was great. It had Art Deco vibes. I love interior design. But I remember feeling so claustrophobic. I physically felt like I was suffocating. And I hadn't had that feeling before. And obviously it was, coming out of the pandemic, and we all, I'm sure, felt claustrophobic. But there was something where I was like, I need to expand for my mental health. Like, I need to create a space that feels like it's holding me, right? Like, I need to be held. And when I moved to Florida, and I found this property, and it's on this beautiful canal, and I was like, I'm going to renovate it and make it a place that feels like a retreat, that feels like a sanctuary. And so going home gives me that. I'm going through various like rituals and practices that I learned from you, and oftentimes feel inadequate and feel guilty that I'm not as consistent as I know I need to be who I want to be. And so I find that to be an interesting practice of care too, because I know what I need to do. And I think this happens to so many of us women. And I know that's why you wrote, Living in Wisdom, because it's for people literally just like me, where we go to the retreats and we read the books and we listen to all the podcasts, but then you're actually teaching us, like, literally, this is how you deal with this. These are the actual modalities that you use. And that's been infinitely helpful for me. I'm literally the audience for what you've done.
Thank you
and
so much.
It means so much, because now I feel like, that can help me get to the next level. And so, it's hard, right? Because I have in the back of my mind every day this vision of myself, and I know my potential. And I know that even in the spaces that I've been in media and entertainment, that doesn't feel like home to me. It doesn't feel safe to me, And so if I don't feel safe in these environments where I poured my life and my career, and like, I don't want to be in those spaces. I haven't felt appreciated all the time in those spaces. And so I say all that to say that now part of my ritual is to find new spaces where I do feel seen, and to look at my purpose and my skill set and say, oh yeah, I was the shit over here at the NBA and at Obama and at this, and now I'm a movie producer and I have a company, and my company does strategy, and we help other people see the light and have these different opportunities. But I think a lot of the practice is in the work that you do and the work that you're teaching us all to do. And it is a daily, practice, like you say, to try to reach to the places where I feel inner peace and I feel like I'm growing in the ways that I need to. I will say, full transparency, sometimes it feels like it needs to be a full-time job.
Ooh, girl.
I'm like, how do I even reach my full potential of this new way that I see my life if it feels like a full-time job? Now, it doesn't feel like a chore.
Yeah.
It feels beautiful.
Yeah.
But I'm like, in order for me to do the work, I need to how are you going to pay the bills and then work on yourself, right?
Know, God. Oh my God.
What do you do? Right? So and I'm sure many people are thinking that, what do we do? Is it a sabbatical? I don't know. But
I feel that deeply.
Yes.
Because I'd be like, I need 3 weeks to recover from,
Yes.
Yeah. But you know what, to everything that you're saying, and just thank you so much for the generosity of spirit in speaking to my book and the practices, but it won't be like that forever.
Yeah.
I think when we're developing, and it'll happen every few years, but because I find that myself, I'm redeveloping what are the practices I need right now, right? And those are going to change. And so every few years, I feel like I redevelop what I actually require. And you start over. But yeah, at first, it's definitely a full-time job. It's exhausting. You're like, oh my God, how much are all these bags of Epsom salt? This is a lot. But then you'll notice that you have so healed and nourished into the present that now you're above ground and you can really become more with a lot less.
Right.
It'll take so much less to get you to get right to that point again of just, feeling rested and ready to shine and ready to give.
What's funny about you saying that is I feel like I was, before the loss of my niece and before that time of just such intense grief, which again is always there, but I felt like I was really close. I was like, oh, I was so close. I was going to the retreats with you and Queen Afua, doing all the Deepak stuff. And, crazy enough, I ended up interviewing Deepak on a stage at an entire football arena.
Oh my God.
I was like, who am I? I'm leading
so
meditation
amazing.
On stage. I'm like, this is literally God manifesting in my life for all the things I want to be and do. And where my attention has been going, my focus has been going, I'm being rewarded. And then it all it didn't fall by the wayside, but it shifted. And so to your point about these seasons, I felt so close. And so there is some grief in that, I'm starting fresh. Yeah.
No judgment.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get to glimpse what's coming, but only because we're going to temper our reality to get more used to operating at that frequency full time. So it's I've had experiences like that myself where I was just I've gotten the thing.
Yeah.
And then you're and no calls for 2 years.
Right.
Or and nothing else like that. I thought now I'd be doing this every day.
Right.
But I found that you don't actually need to be, right? Because sometimes you impact in the exact way that you're supposed to, and you can take a lot of space.
Yeah.
And then the rest of your life catches up to hold the full kind of weight and frequency of what it is to do that work every day. Because I think especially, and I'd be so curious for listeners listening, DM us, add us, if anyone else is having this experience, but when I first knew that I was called to be in this work of being deeply well, no pun intended, I would have really intense seasons of being in it and then kind of being out of it. And what I realized is I had to really prepare for what I was going to hold. There were additional things that I needed to move out of my body and my life, grief is one of them, limiting thoughts, gaining mastery and knowing how to take care of myself and hold kind of big space for hearing really hard things, that if I had started doing all of that when I was early on this path, I wouldn't have survived.
Right.
I would not have survived. There are some things, and we've been in a retreat room before,
Yes.
some things that are shared when you're coming into these spaces to lead, that are really hard, that are really painful for people, and you got to have the space in there for it.
Right.
And so I want to honor and recognize that, I don't know that it's ever because someone is ill-equipped or deficient, or because it's not somehow the path has been pulled away and that's not going to be where you're meant to be. I think we get to say, it's kind of how the astrology transits work. Like you get to dip in for a little bit, and then you come back and your body readjusts, and now your life begins to readjust to hold the fullness of that reality full time.
It feels that way though.
Yeah.
To that point, it's like, you know, the vulnerability that I'm sharing around my struggles now is, I feel like that's part of the story too.
Hell yeah.
I'm like, I have to, like,
we need it because we got to know how you engineered it.
Right. Absolutely.
Everybody needs to know, like, how did you get yourself there? Because then people know you are who you say you are.
Exactly.
There are a lot of people that every time the tide change it. We have seen this.
Right. Oh, I know.
Every time the tide changes in the zeitgeist and something new is in. I remember, I'll use an example of like this one person I happened to notice on social, where anytime any new thing was the leading conversation or in, their bio changed. So they went from being such and such to being, you know, an anti-racism activist, to being a wellness guru, to being, you know, like everything that would be, or originally started as like the shadiest, would call out and keep it real and drop shade. And it's just like, those aren't people that live the wisdom, right? Those aren't people that live the work and serve with the work. And I think this is what really, and I hope this gets driven home for everybody listening, those in between passages are like where we earn it, where we really prove to God that we can be trusted, that we are who we say we are. And then we're actually having useful, helpful, important, nourishing things to share with people, not just more talk about, well, you should be doing this. Really? Did you? Did you do that? Is that how you did it? You know? So like, I love it because we need this grace and we're always going to be dipping into a middle passage, you know, every 5 years, every decade.
It's just gonna happen. Well, it's funny, as a kid, I remember I used to say to myself, like, what did you do to deserve all this goodness? Like, not in a self-deprecating way, but I used to be like, God, you're so good to me. Am I good to you? Like, I remember you having this kind of, oh my gosh, since I was a kid, 12, 13 years old, I remember being like, why are you so, why me? Like, am I going to church the way I'm supposed to? I wasn't even in high school yet. I just remember having these dialogues with myself and God, like, you do everything for me. You provide. I can think of something and you'll give it to me. And am I pleasing to you? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do to you? And so what you're sharing right now, as far as like the middle passage, I do feel like now I'm earning it. Like, and not that he wants to punish me or have me go through grief. It's like I, in a weird way, it's kind of coming full circle because I feel like my life has been such a blessing, as it should be. I'm God's favorite child. I deserve it. I deserve all the things. And at the same time, I remember having the thoughts of like, if I'm not obedient to what he's asking me to do, if I'm not going into the house of God, if I don't have a church home, why do I get all the things? Why does he give me everything? And so there's something about that I think many of us think about, even if we don't say out loud. I've never really said that out loud either, but I believe this middle passage and this, like you said, going through this thing is like, in a weird way, it's giving me the grit. Again, I don't want a hard life. I want a soft life. I want a soft life. I want all the things. Look, the softest life I could get. But there's so much validity to what you just said around the authenticity of that. And there's some of that I feel.
Thank you. I'm just so glad we're having this exact conversation we're having, because this is what we all need. We need to understand the nuance of what it is to live purpose-driven, what it is to be the multifaceted, dynamic women all of us are. All of us have so many facets, you know, and I think we're all learning how to take up space with them. I did this event recently, and Rebecca Minkoff has this women's cohort in leadership, and she said something I had never in my life thought about. Like, she was just like, you know, women have only been working for 100 years.
Oh, that's it?
And I really let that sink in. Now, granted,
we working.
Yeah. And depending on the cultural background, like women have, unless, you know, in previous times, unless you were married and of a certain background, you were working in some capacity, but like this idea that women have only been really working professionally and being allowed to earn their own money for 100 years, like a century is nothing.
Right.
And then when you actually shoot that forward and say, women that have been living purposefully, right, and or having big careers or big dynamic lives, that's been 40 years.
Right. Wow.
We're
crazy.
still learning.
Yeah.
So the fact that you and I can have this vulnerable conversation where someone can hear the way you move and reckon inside outside of the optics of she worked with President Obama, right? Like big people have respect for her. Obama, Jay-Z, leading athletes, probably the commissioner at the NBA, you know, like these are people that respect you and have leaned on you over the years. And then to also understand all the inner workings as we still are settling into what that is for us. We're still the pioneers, honestly, of what it is to be career-driven, purposeful women. We're the first batch.
Right.
There have been those outliers, those one or two women that made it big that you'd hear about around the country. But now it's like, you know, there's millions.
Yeah.
And so this is still new. We are still learning how to lead our way.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, and as you're talking about the leading of it all, right? You think about the careers and the jobs. One of the exercises I've been trying to practice as I'm, you know, doing this, you know, press tour for the film and having different conversations on different panels. I'm like, how do I describe myself without leading with NBA, Obama, this job, that job? Like, how does that
Release
look?
the roles.
Yeah, release the roles,
titles.
you know? And to your point, but only for 40 years have we had these jobs. Like, why do I want to release that?
Right.
Should it be something that's released?
Interesting.
It's really interesting, right? Like, is that, and it was given to me as a challenge, as an exercise, actually. And so I'm like, well, oh yeah, let me try to do that. Like, what does it look like? Because, and I've spoken to you about this, like, I don't feel like I hold the titles and the affiliations as my identity. I never have. That's never been something like, it's nice to go to games and I got pictures with Obama and Jay-Z. Like, that's cute. But there's so much respect for me in my work that it's been able to transcend the title of the job, right? I'm a respected person who does what I do. And that is the title that I like to hold, right? That I'm an expert in my field and I'm sought after to do what I do. But this idea to describe myself or to go on, you know, I just did CultureCon, Amani, amazing experience. And it was like, how do I, you know, obviously someone says your bio, but how do I talk about my work and not talk about the actual job?
Oh my gosh.
And it's really like, it's the purpose-driven work. It's the connectivity. It's the community. But when you mention the 40 years and the 100 years, it's making me think like, what is that about, right? Like, do we not need to continue to lead with that in order to inspire others? And, you know,
such an interesting question.
Is it necessary?
I think we all need to land in our truest, most grounded, service-based understanding of why those titles can be useful, have respect for how they were earned, but definitely not quantify self with them and not use it as like a tactic to like dominate a space, you know?
Yeah.
Because I found like for myself, like I definitely wrestled with that when I was changing worlds because I felt like there was this whole side of me that I was actually like bearing, you know, that it was just like, oh, she doesn't exist anymore. And it took 10 years for some of it to come full circle and me kind of be able to use both. But I would have the experience. I'm so curious to share this with you. Like, I would have the experience in the last handful of years where people would project, sometimes in some rooms, mostly professional women rooms, where they would project this irritation onto me because I don't lean into titles. And some people would falsely assume that's some kind of an insecurity. Clearly not.
Right.
You know who I am. But
exactly. Right.
Or, you know, it would just irritate them because they were so used to feeling valuable based on who they were telling people they were. And I would just show up and be like, hey, I'm Devi.
Right.
And if people be like, and what else? I'd be like, I'm Devi. Here's what I stand for, no matter who I'm working for, what I'm doing, like not leading with that. And that can provoke people as well, you know? So
absolutely.
it's such an interesting juggle to try to figure out, how do I express the truth of my professionalism, the truth of my expertise, without also bringing a lot of hubris into it and making it seem egoic or above. And still, in this day and age where people can say they are whatever they are, the nuance is important.
Right.
Like there is a distinction of not a title because it makes you valuable, but owning the fact that you have earned your perspective, that you've really earned what you bring into a space and like what you rely on to get to that information.
Right.
I hope I'm making sense.
No, you are. And what's coming up for me is it's like it's part of that, but with a little bit of a different angle that's coming to mind from the perspective of, you know, when I'm not leading with my title and when I'm no longer in those jobs, even though I have the reputation, I have you would think the respect, I have the background, the bio, all the things that you're describing that exists. That's true. It's real. And for whatever reason, now if I'm not directly working in the NBA, for example, spaces where I was welcome, I don't feel welcome. And spaces where I would normally get an invite, I'm no longer invited. And so part of that is like, well, your party's going to be whack anyway because I'm not there. But like, go ahead and not have, you know, but there is a piece of it that's like, okay. So to your point around these amazing women, I have these amazing colleagues who I work with, women in sports, and they have these coalitions and organizations. And for whatever reason, like because I'm no longer in that job, even though I'm doing similar work, I'm doing work to me that's even more purposeful. I'm doing it as an entrepreneur, which is really hard. 5 years in, still an entrepreneur. That's super, super hard from a statistical standpoint to still have a business that's viable where I haven't had to go back in house. And all of a sudden, that's no longer my community. How did that happen? Right? Like what happened that now, you know, I'm not part of that thing. And so, and of course I see folks and, you know, you go to All-Star and you see people, but that part has been really interesting. I'm like, so now you've thrown me away or you've discarded me because I'm not leading with that title or I'm no longer in that job. When in reality, the thing that I'm so proud of is that I've been able to expand my portfolio. Yeah. So you might see me at the Oscars now. You saw, we were just at the ESPYs and they showed my movie at the ESPYs. They showed the trailer at the ESPYs in front of every athlete that was there, right? So I'm like, well, I'm getting access to bigger rooms, but I don't treat people that way.
But that's what that is, right?
Yeah.
It's just you're being asked to bring your full focus into different rooms.
Right.
You know, and like I think that is like that kind of, what would I call it? Like the initiation,
right?
Yes,
like
where you're kind of like, oh, I have to be rejected a little.
Yes.
To like really lock in my focus and see like, oh, this is what's in front of me.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's exciting about that is, you know, again, and not from an egoic, you know, perspective, but part of me is like, oh, I see you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm always like, thank you, God. Like now I know who you really are. And what it looked like 7 years ago at the NBA and who you really are, who we are to each other today. Thank you, God.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. And so that's been something that I'm so grateful that I've had in me for, I don't know when God placed it, but it feels like decades where it's, you know, yes, of course you always want to have people thinking of you, but the reality is I'm like, thank you, God, because things come full circle, right?
Yeah.
Like things always come full circle, but more importantly, I'm in spaces I never thought I'd dream of. And when I think of my portfolio, my body of work, I'm like, I've been in all these spaces. And sometimes it feels like, you know, someone asked me the other day, would you ever go back in house at some of these other jobs? And I said, why would I go backwards? Mm-hmm. Why would I go backwards? I've gotten job offers. I've had the opportunity. Why? And it's no shade, but like my trajectory is telling me to move forward and to push beyond. And it's not that I'm missing anything from the past, but it's just interesting to me because, again, as a community builder, I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, let's just keep collecting more opportunities to collaborate. And so it has been an interesting journey, you know, again, as a woman in this space and having these big jobs and doing these big things, especially at a young age, you know. And so I'm like, well, I've already done that. Like, you want to work for the mayor, I work for the president. Like, you know, like on a big scale to the point where he would see me at an event and he would come up to me and say, I knew this was you. Like, I'll never forget, like, I was standing in the hallway at 4040 Club with Jay-Z and Beyonce, and he comes down the hallway, and I'm thinking he's going to address her, and he says, I just wanted to tell you, I knew this was you. I knew this was you. And so to have that branding. Surreal. So, you know, at the end of the day, I have these memories and these things that feed my soul and my spirit. But to your point, we go into these rooms and spaces sometimes, and I'm trying to temper the ego and temper all the things. And sometimes people want to humble you, you know, in other ways. Yeah.
So they think.
Think. Right.
Freedom
Right.
is hard for people.
Yeah.
Freedom is hard. Like real authentic freedom is rare.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes for some people to behold it.
Right.
You get the polarity of it where
Yeah.
you can deeply inspire. Like, I mean, you're inspiring at the core of someone's spirit
Yeah.
what's possible. And there's the shadow aspect where someone, and they'll never name it, right? Like
Yeah.
they'll never say it out loud. Hopefully they come to it because it would heal, but the freedom, the ease of movement, the brilliance that shines in any capacity, right? Like that is so hard for some people to witness, and they could never dare it or dream it for themselves. And their own limitation. Humans are so fascinating.
I know. And it's even hard to hear you say that because I'm like, oh, is that me? Like you kind of are like, oh, I don't, yeah, I'm that light, but it's like what you're saying is true. And then it's like, I want to be humble and not think that about myself, but you kind of, it's hard to hear sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
it is you.
Yeah.
It's me too.
Yeah. Right.
It's there are women, there
Yes.
are men,
Yes.
there are beings like this.
Yes.
And it is a thing that's hard to talk about.
It is, yeah.
And you don't even know how or who to talk about it to,
Yeah.
but it is a dynamic that's experienced. And I think, I mean, for so many of us, and I'll be really excited when societally, collectively, we actually begin having this conversation for real, but what workplace trauma actually is, what friend trauma is, right? We've been checking off the list.
Right.
We've been experiencing, diving deep on all different facets of trauma.
Right.
And collectively, we've been focused on familial trauma, for especially the last 5 years. But when we get into the nuance space of that and how some people's darkness and more insidious nature shows up and is so hidden and concealed in environments like that.
Yeah.
How people cause real damage and harm to other people with a smile on their face
yeah. Oh.
and a well-positioned email.
Right.
Like
is
it's
so
just
true.
like these are real things that we
Yeah.
deal with, and they are hard.
They are.
And they are disappointing. And sometimes it takes real healing time. You have to pull away and heal. But we can do it.
Yep.
And everyone else, the perpetrators usually don't advance. And I think now it's been kind of cool at this age since I've turned 40
Yeah.
to look back, and you can really have so much historical evidence for things that your gut and spirit might have felt a long time ago where you're
Right.
like, that's not the right choice, or nah, it's not going to end up well, for
Yes.
them behaving that way or that.
Right.
And now I've seen it.
Right.
It's true.
Exactly.
Did nobody that I would see being underhanded or harmful or cruel to other people in the workplace, on the career rise, not a single one of them is anywhere I'd want to be.
Right. Exactly. Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah. And we can all trust it. And I want people to know
Yeah.
that you can trust that even sometimes you will have to endure unfairness.
Yeah.
We don't know the length of time, but
Yeah. And sometimes you see the people that are doing harm get ahead.
yeah.
I see that too. And I'm like, how did that happen? And I'm like, but it's not going to, at the very end of the day, and not that you wish that on
In
anyone.
the long game, it really
Exactly.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Or there's an outward success and inward failure,
Yeah.
and that's always on their mind more.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, God, we could talk for days. 'Cause
Right,
I'm like,
exactly.
I just ran into an old boss
Right.
recently, and I
Oh,
saw
really?
that, and I was like, oh, so many thoughts. Anywho, I want to dive in and really talk about hoops, hopes, and dreams.
Yes.
So that's your newest project. It premiered at Sundance this year. It has already received incredible recognition. This story is so fascinating. When I saw this movie, I had no idea what to expect. And I was blown away by the story that's being told in this film, and also the natural sense it made that would never have occurred to me prior.
Right.
But can you please share a little bit about what this very unique film is about?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because as we're talking about, well, not funny, but the connection between grief and feelings. And so I'll just tell you how I got involved in the project first, because it is, it's a hard situation, but it turned into this, beautiful outcome. But I'm not sure if you know Michael Latt or have heard about Michael Latt, but he's someone who's been a champion purpose-driven leader. He had an organization called Lead with Love. A lot of people in LA and just nationally knew him. And worked with Ava DuVernay and Common and Ryan Coogler and all these amazing folks. And so he's just very aligned with who I am as a person. And so I remember over the years people saying, there's this white guy that does what you do, but in film. They're like, do you know him? He's like the white kid. But people always would describe him as that. Like he's, people use the word ally, but he was bigger than that. And so over the years, I'd never met him. And then eventually I got a phone call of an introduction. They said, you need to know Michael. So I say, hey, I've heard about you. I keep getting compared to you, or people keep saying, you need to talk to Michael. And so I was coming to LA, we had dinner, and I get to dinner and he has a book. And the book was called True Love. And I was super confused. I was like, why are you giving me a book called True Love? I've talked to you like 3 times on the phone. I just was so confused. And I knew, like, no shade, but I'm like, I knew he liked Black people. I was like, is he trying to holler? Like, it's just like, I know what was going on, right? And actually, funny enough, last night we had an event and people were saying the first time they met him, they thought they were going on a date. And that's the same experience I had. I was like, is this man taking me on a date? Long story short, while we're sitting there, he says, I'm working on this film. And it's about Martin Luther King Jr. and President Obama in the game of basketball. And you're the only person in the world that's ever done all of those jobs. You're the only person who has worked for President Obama, who has done the social impact work with the NBA. I'm the only one. And so that is, first of all, that's just like, to have someone just outwardly say that to you, to be seen. And that's what he's known for. He's like, we've done the research, like it's literally you. And he's right. And so just holding space for myself for that, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And he said, well, we have this project, and I'm thinking maybe he's going to ask for my opinion. And he was like, I would love to have you join the team. Not just as a person to give feedback, but like as a producer. Wow. And I was like, oh, well, funny enough, that has always been something on my list of goals. I've produced podcasts. I've produced, commercials for the Obama campaign with Jay-Z and others, but I knew there was something in me that said, I want to tell stories in a bigger way. So I said, this is a personal goal of mine. So, I know it's a documentary. As folks know who are in the industry, documentaries don't really make money. So it wasn't coming from the intention of that. It was coming from the intention that I knew that God was giving me an opportunity to do something that I didn't have to chase and fight. When I mentioned going through this phase of my life where I just want to be in the space of receiving, I was able to receive how he spoke of me. I was able to receive the opportunity to be involved in something that I didn't even know if it was going to be a job or create financial gain for myself, but I knew that it was something that was a goal of mine, that I knew that God was placing me in a position to do. And so I met Glenn Kino, who's a director, and Jesse Williams, who's a producer. And so, immediately we are so aligned in who we are as people. Unfortunately, Michael was tragically murdered a few days after Thanksgiving by a deranged woman. And he never got to Sundance. And so
I'm so sorry.
It was the most horrific thing to have someone who leads with so much love, who brought me into a project, and to lose him. He had gone on vacation, with his fiance, and I was talking to him like the day before, and he's just the most amazing person. And so he didn't join a meeting, and you're like talking shit to somebody like, how are you not joining the meeting? Like, where are you? So I ended up calling him, and his mother answered the phone and was like, he had been murdered. Oh my God. So the strength of a mother, his mother is just the strongest. She's just so amazing. And so all of that happened, so quickly. And of course, naturally, we're like, we can't do this film. Like, this was November. I'm like, we can't like continue, and if it wasn't for Glenn Kino, the director, and other folks on the team and Michael's family, they're like, this would have been his first and last film. We have to do this. Right. And so I wanted to share that because I think it's, when we talk about grief and holding space and doing all these different things, we had to deal with that and then still find the way
still have the will to move it forward.
And so it's so much deeper than even what it looks like on the surface. But the story itself is the untold story of Dr. King playing basketball to build community. And then we tell some untold stories around President Obama that people don't know. And when you think about it, the time that we're in now with education and textbooks and people erasing our history, this is actually history no one knew. We have Dr. Bernice King, his daughter, who's a EP on the film, and her first response was, "Thank you so much for showing this side of my father." And so, so to be able to show that Dr. King did not go into Selma and say, "Everybody follow me in March." No, that's not how it works. He sent Ambassador Andrew Young and his crew and said, "Go build community. Go to the basketball court, meet people where they are." And so for us to be able to tell a story that is so aligned with where we are today. Go meet people where they are. Like, everybody has differing views and perspectives, but if you look at yourselves as part of a team, then you're going to hopefully make the best choices that are for the best interest of the team. And so that's what Dr. King did. That's what Obama did. And so we have Jamel Hill narrating. We have Jerry West's final interview before he passed away, talking about what it's like to only be around Black people for the first time as a basketball player, and the empathy he developed seeing the injustices that were happening with his teammates. And so we're able to tell this story that, you know, we premiered at Sundance and, you know, are able to, you know, we just got a special recognition at the Hamptons Film Festival. We won Cleveland Film Festival. But the most exciting, unexpected thing was that Walt Disney, you know, Anscape, which is the Black-led media company, part of Walt Disney, they bought the film. And, you know, Jason Adu and his team not just saw the potential and what it could do for the country, but they saw the potential in us as filmmakers. And so now I'm able to proudly say I'm a producer, I'm a movie producer. And that amazing working relationship with Glenn and Jesse and others, I'm now a partner in Visibility Media. So we tell stories and have other stories in the works that are going to break barriers and talk about race and talk about women and, you know, again, just uncover the things that we just don't know that we need to know. And it's a scary time. It's a scary time to be talking about these things, but we're 10 toes down knowing that this is our mission to bring stories to life, and it's family friendly. So like kids can watch it, and it's premiering January 19th on Hulu and Disney Plus. So we're like really on TV. But everything about it has been the most beautiful experience, but it's also been a lesson to me, and that, you know, to say yes when opportunities come, and that my life's work has culminated in something that was on my vision board. Yeah.
Wow.
It's exciting.
It's so exciting. And it's just everything that you're sharing. It's such a beautiful roadmap to purpose.
Thank you.
You know, and I think something so cool is, like, as we've moved through this conversation, being able to touch on just all the layers of a purpose-driven life. Also the fact that, like, you could be doing so many different things that you think make no sense together.
Right.
And you could be grappling with identity inside and being like, but I'm this, but I'm also this, but I want to be this. But how does it all make sense?
Yeah.
And then it's like literally, and then this phone call comes and it's like, hey, I need exactly you. You're the only one because you've been this.
Right.
None of those things make sense, but that's what this is about,
right?
You know, like it's just like God is such a master of creation. Like it is just so powerful and also fun. I hope everyone's really hearing the fun in this, like how much fun can also be present, you know, and how you can even release the stress of thinking that you don't make sense.
Right.
And just saying, God, show me how it all makes sense.
Oh, girl, when I tell you the level of inner peace I feel, I've never felt this sense of I'm so regulated. Like even in all the conversation we just had and all the struggles, I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be.
Yeah.
And that feeling right there, there's no price tag you can put on that. And the people that I'm working with, I love, and the way that I'm seen, and just in general, just being free. You talk about freedom. I feel so free. I feel like I can do whatever I want to do. Can't nobody tell me shit. And it's amazing. You know, like I feel like I'm like literally, I'm a filmmaker. Like it is so cool. And then I don't know what's next, right? Because to your point, all the connectivities and the pathways, and it doesn't have to make sense in the moment for anyone. Just know that the way that God is looking at how you're living your life, He's going to work it out. He's going to give you the pavers, and then you just have to step on them and then take the next step and take the next step. And I feel like in this journey, like I said yes. And I was like, okay, I've never done this in this way, but I trust the people I'm working with, and teach me something, you know, I'm sure you feel this way too. When you're an entrepreneur and when you're leading so many people, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
I want to learn. I want to be.
Please.
Yes. I'm like, please. Like, so I'm learning so much. And that has been to your point about having fun. Like, this is fun because I know so much about the things where I'm an expert, but like this area has been so much fun to unpack and uncover. And the people I'm meeting has been amazing. And I love it.
I am just like, girl, I'm on the edge of my seat. I can't wait to see all the things.
It's coming.
And the movie, again, I just can't overstate. It's such a special movie. Everybody has to watch it. It was so fun to watch and also really inspiring because, like, to the way you were describing it, this really creative understanding of like how to cultivate like community, you know, and in such non-traditional ways, you know, and it all eventually makes sense because it feeds the greater work of, what we need from everyone in the moments that we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just, so I'll say this is my last question before I invite you to do some soul work with the audience.
Yes.
As you move into this new season of your life and your work, what is feeling most alive in you right now?
I think this idea that I'm a creative, because I feel like, I've been, a community builder for so long, and it's been about bringing people together. This season of being a producer and seeing what it's like to storytell has unlocked a creativity in me that isn't the title or the label I would have given myself before. Like, I knew that I was able to see things and be a strategist and bring things to life, but I'm like, I want to paint. I know that sounds like random. Like, now I want to,
Not at all.
I'm like, I want to paint. I want to go and, be in spaces where I'm around other creatives. And I feel like there's something in me that's going to come out. Again, I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's something that has been sparked in me that's going to really surprise myself. And so that makes me feel really, really alive. And the other thing I would say is, and I know we talk about this as it relates to bringing people together, like the way I look at retreating, and you have a whole entire section in your book that I just re-listened to around retreats. And I feel like that makes me feel alive, this idea to create space for myself and others where we can just be. And just the idea of being able to be more aligned with that. I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and we were talking about travel, and I'm like, I've been traveling so much for work. I haven't been traveling for self lately. And so just this idea of how I can do more of that, it gets me excited. Like, I haven't done it yet, but I'm like, I'm feeling alive by the idea of creativity. And even Amani does these like creative sabbaticals. I'm intrigued by that. And so the aliveness in me is the curiosity. Like, I'm really, really curious around this stage of my life. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
What a special place to be in.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that is so beautiful.
Thank you.
I invite you now to share some soul work. So this is our integration piece. Okay. After everything we've kind of listened to, we've been moving through so many themes in this episode around purpose and service and community and the peaks and the valleys. Yes. If there is a practice of some sort, soul work, that everyone can take with them and maybe work on after they finish this episode or in the coming days. It can be a practice, it can be a quote, it can be a prompt, but just something to work with.
Yeah. Well, I was sharing with you earlier a bit around my birthday practices. I look at my birthday as my renewal. I think about the fact that God brought me into the world on this, October 29th. And that, the fact that he's allowed me to live another year I have so much gratitude for that. So I think a practice, something that I'm doing actively right now, is this idea to look back at the past year and what are the things that you wanted to accomplish that you didn't? Not from a space of judgment, but from a space of just understanding why. And then, do those things still matter to you? And they may not, right? And if they don't, then you can leave them by the wayside and no longer think about them and have them on your mind space as something that you didn't do. And the second piece of that is if there's a why to it and if there's a solution to that why. And I know for myself, I was just talking about retreats, so it made me think of that. Like, I haven't done one yet, or one at the way that I want to. And I think it's because this idea of having to plan an event by myself that I can't enjoy seems overwhelming, but I still want to do it. So like, that's a why that I can combat. The other thing I would say is, what do you want to learn? I know we are always striving to be students of things, and sometimes that can be overwhelming, but just this idea, this thought process of what do I want to learn this year? And for me, it's something as simple as swimming. I know it sounds random, but I thought Black people couldn't swim, and we were gonna keep along that wrong title or tag that we gave ourselves. And so I've been joking with my friends, like, everybody learned how to swim and didn't tell me that was like the thing you're supposed to do. So, but that's just my example. Yeah, it's my example of. That's something that I want to learn. It's not about being a student in something more deep or learning how to be in, a class. It's something that's going to make me feel more free because I'm connected to water. It's not that I need to save myself if I'm in the ocean. It's actually not that deep. It's because I feel free, connected to water, and I want to be able to have that practice more deeply. In order to do that, I need to learn how to swim. And it's something that I see Denise Vasi actually on Instagram. I've been following her journey of learning how to swim, and it's been really inspiring. And so, I feel like those are two of the things. Like, what have you not done in the past year that maybe you want to leave behind or pick back up? And what do you want to learn?
Oh, I love that. That's a really great practice.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Thank you.
Alexys Feaster, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. I had the best time.
Thank you for sharing all your
yes.
wisdom.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Love you. You're the best.
Love you. Everyone go see this movie. It is so inspiring and good and creative and just really interesting. Got my wheels turning. As always, thank you so much for listening to this show. Please rate and review. Share this episode with a friend who needs to hear this today. And we'll be back next week. Namaste.